With the threat of a Russian military invasion of Ukraine still ongoing, Americans are feeling the pinch at the pump. Gasoline prices are skyrocketing to the highest levels in nearly 8 years, up nationwide 6 cents per gallon over last week. President Biden has pledged to stop the Russia to Germany Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline if Russia invades Ukraine. So what would war in Ukraine mean for the world energy supply? Are there alternative sources that would help keep the oil and gas flowing? Well, here to explain is Gregg Roman. He's director of the Middle East Forum. Gregg, it's good to talk to you again. So tell me, what is going on here? I mean, many people say, why are you talking to a Middle East guy? But there is a country that is being looked at by the Biden administration as an alternative supplier of oil and natural gas to Europe.
That's correct. And that country is Qatar, the small emirate right next to Iran that hosts Hezbollah, Hamas, Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, and a whole bunch of other designated terror organizations. Hezbollah to a lesser extent, but they have financed them in the past. So President Biden hosted the Emir of Qatar last week, doing two things. He asked them to supplement the gas supply to Europe that might offset any cuts that the Russians make, either because they do it unilaterally or because their companies are subject to sanctions from the United States after a potential invasion of the Ukraine. And he also confers upon the Qataris a status called non-NATO major ally status, which means that the Qataris now are equivalent to other U.S. allies in the region, like Kuwait and Bahrain. Now, this is problematic for three reasons. The first is that you are underwriting an autocracy that is one of the greatest violators of human rights in the region. But even more than that, the Qataris are invested in Russia. They own one of the largest shares in Russia's second largest bank. They gave $11 billion to bail out Russia's Rosneft natural gas company. And beyond that, they're involved in dozens of other infrastructure projects, not to mention they are similarly geopolitically aligned with the Russians in Turkey, in Iran, in Pakistan, in Syria, and in other countries. And even if we look at here at home, American natural gas, which brings me to the third option. President Biden could reverse the tax increases. He could give back the tax incentives to rebuild American gas infrastructure, first and foremost the Keystone XL pipeline. And he could find other creative measures to allow the American economy to roar back to its energy highs that took place during the Trump administration. And that would be a way in which to go a long way to offset Russian dominance in the energy space in Europe. And I think having Europe relying on the U.S. is much better than having them rely on the Russians. So for those three reasons, they shouldn't be going to Qatar. They should be looking inwards towards the United States and towards our allied countries.
And Gregg, quickly here, because we're running out of time, but I wanted to ask you about this new alliance between Russia and China. They've got pipelines now going from Russia into China. President Xi just met with Putin. What are they up to with the Middle East? What are the ramifications for all of this?
Russia the bear and China the dragon are looking at a way to undermine the United States on the edges of their spheres of influence. If the Russians do go into Ukraine and China backs it, the Chinese would look towards the Russians for support for a potential invasion of Taiwan. If the Russians extend their area of hegemonic influence over Eastern Europe, the Chinese will look towards the Russians to support an expansion of their hegemonic interests towards Southeast Asia. They are both in the East with the Russians facing the United States and the NATO bloc, and in the West with the Chinese facing the United States with its new circle strategy going from India to Australia, up through the Philippines, Japan, and South Korea. So both countries, and I think wrongly, but they both feel threatened by the U.S. dominance in the region, and now they're pushing back. If they work together, they're more likely to think that they'll succeed. But I think the U.S., by the time it starts confronting these two theaters, should wake up and realize that it's time to contain Russia and China. And at the end of the day, the Russians and the Chinese have a historical grievance that goes back hundreds of years, and that might upset the apple cart of this re-emerging alliance.
Okay, very interesting and important global strategic developments here. Gregg Roman, director of the Middle East Forum. Thank you, Gregg, for being with us.
Thank you, Gary.